Hey, what's going on everyone? Cedric here, and you are watching my channel, Passport Said. Now, if you haven't already, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button. I would highly appreciate it. So in this video, I wanted to talk to you guys about a recent trip that we took to Costa Rica. Not too long ago, we were planning a family vacation. So we were looking for a destination that obviously was family friendly, safe, and that people of all age range could enjoy. My father and mother were joining us for this trip. My dad's in his 60s, my youngest is 5. So it was very important that, it could be enjoyed by everyone in the family. So I had heard a lot about Costa Rica. We've all seen the videos, a lot of hype behind the place. So I thought, you know what, this might be a good time to check out Costa Rica. So I wanted to share with you guys our experience to maybe help you plan your next visit to Costa Rica. So overall, we had a great time in Costa Rica. We learned a lot about the place and how it functions. And there's definitely some things that we would do differently if we could do it all over again, or if we wish to ever visit Costa Rica again. And at the end of the video, I wanted to share with you guys my honest opinion on our visit to Costa Rica. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Now, the first thing that we noticed when we got off the plane was the beautiful weather. We went in January, and I don't know if you guys know, but it's really cold in Michigan in January. So there was a drastic difference. So we rented a vehicle from Adobe Rent-A-Car. Now, when I ran the search, I was specifically looking for an airport pickup. And although it did state that this was an airport pickup, it actually wasn't. Instead, a shuttle came to pick us up and took us to the rental site where we picked up the vehicle. The rental fee was $1,073 for a 7-passenger van for a total of 10 days. On top of that fee, there was a liability protection that cost us about $360. So that was a grand total of approximately $1,350 for a 7-passenger van for 10 days in Costa Rica. Now, although it wasn't an actual airport pickup, we weren't disappointed whatsoever. The company was super professional. The gentleman that came to pick us up was friendly. He was there on time. Everybody there was friendly, professional. The car was clean, in good condition, so no issues whatsoever. I would probably rent a vehicle from them again. So as soon as we got a rental vehicle, we started our journey to La Fortuna. Another thing to remember, GPSs there aren't super reliable. Now, we were told by everybody that Waze was the app to use. I didn't question it. I took everybody's advice. We used Waze and didn't have an issue. Now, also another great pointer, a lot of places in Costa Rica don't have actual addresses, and this reminded me a lot of Laos. They give you a ballpark general location of where your destination is, and then will give you additional directions such as at the church, make a right, make a left at the big rock. When you see the 3rd tree, bust another right, and there you are. With that said, we didn't have any issues. Costa Rica is big on its tourism, so although they don't have specific addresses, I think they're well prepared, and we didn't have any issues finding any of the spots that we had booked in advance. So it was a long trip. We got hungry along the way and stopped at what they call a soda. A soda is pretty much a very typical diner in Costa Rica. They're kind of all over the place, and I would highly recommend eating at sodas. Number one, you get very local type food and the prices are fair. I think we ate at a soda just about every day on this trip. I couldn't be happier with the vibe that we got there. It was our first stop. You're always a little nervous, kind of getting to know the place when you arrive somewhere new. And the people there were just friendly and warm. There was a little bit of a language barrier, but they kept a smile and they worked with us and we got our food and everybody was happy. Now, when we were waiting for our food, the young lady actually gave us a tour of the grounds. There was a little river in the back, they had a garden, we tried to spot some sloths. I don't know the name of the place and I'm not even really sure where we were at. It was so spontaneous. We saw it on the side of the road. We stopped and we grabbed a bite, but a great first impression of Costa Rica. Now, when I had done the research, the trip from San Jose to La Fortuna called for about 3 hours. It took a little longer. It took us a lot longer to make it here than I had anticipated. I think we calculated for what, 2 hours? Took us maybe 4, 5, 4? Okay. So we finally got to our destination. It was a super long day, with the time delays, and we woke up, I think, at 4 a.m. to catch a 6 a.m. flight. We got to Costa Rica. Right away, we jumped in a car, a 5-hour trip. Everybody was exhausted. My parents went straight to bed. The wife went straight to bed, but me and the kids couldn't fall asleep. So we decided to venture a little bit and hit up the city center. It was actually New Year's Day, now that I think about it. But it was beautiful. Everybody was out. The weather was perfect. Nice little vibe. It wasn't a big town whatsoever. It's like there's a church in the middle. Just such a great vibe. Day 2, so we started our morning with a complimentary breakfast at this place. Now the highlight of this was they had a bird feeder just outside of the dining spot, and there was all kind of exotic birds, you know, having their breakfast while we were having ours, you know, toucans and so on. So it was a great little addition. Food was great. And to be honest, we really loved this hotel. It was probably the one stay that we enjoyed the most during our entire stay in Costa Rica. Now, for 2 rooms and 3 nights at this location, we paid a total of $877. Now, on day 2, we had planned to spend our morning at Ecotermales Fortuna, which is pretty much one of their many hot spring pools in the La Fortuna area. Beautiful location. Now, the price for about 4 hours at the Ecotermales was approximately $228, and that was for 4 adults, 2 children, and the youngest was free. Definitely recommend the spot. Had a fantastic time there. Great pina coladas. After the hot pool, it was time for lunch, and we stopped by yet another soda. We had the best ceviche at this place. As a matter of fact, we probably ordered ceviche with every meal that we had in Costa Rica. From there, we decided to stop by the rope swing. Now, the rope swing is something that I had discovered when I was doing my research. And it's one of the few places that we visited in Costa Rica that didn't require an entry fee whatsoever. And to be honest, it was a real authentic experience because of that. It wasn't touristy. I mean, there was a few tourists there, but there was also a lot of locals because it wasn't a park or, you know, or something that required a pretty hefty price to enter. Essentially what it was a river that ran under a bridge with a little waterfall with a rope hanging from a tree, and people just swung on the rope and dove into the water. Where my dad had the hardest time letting go of the rope, let go, tried to dive in head first, and belly flopped about 3 consecutive times. It was hilarious. But yeah, we had a great time there. You know, we met some people from the area, chatted up with them a little bit, but definitely a cool spot. Now, if you're visiting Costa Rica and want to hit up the rope swing, there's tons of videos on YouTube which will give you the directions on how to find this place. So after that, we went back to the room, freshened up, hit up the town again, and called it a night. Day 3. Now, this entire day was reserved for Arenal Park, where we were gonna do the infamous Costa Rica zip lining. So I pretty much booked a package at Arenal Park that cost us about $95 a person, which included 3 things. One was a hike. The nature hike I found to be mediocre. I mean, they had a couple of sky bridges that were pretty cool, but it was no more, no less than just, you know, an average nature walk. You know, that's the thing about Costa Rica, is there's a lot of people recommend these nature walks. You know, maybe I'm just not the hiking type, and I spend a lot of time in nature, so, you know, looking at trees and so on and so forth just isn't the most exciting thing to me. So the second thing was the Sky Tram, which is pretty much your voyage to the highest elevation point of your descent when you zip line. So if you're not looking to zip line, you can book a Sky Tram ticket just to Sky Tram up and Sky Tram down. But if you book the zip line, the Sky Tram is part of it because that's what takes you up to the highest elevation point where you're gonna start making your descent. Now, I gotta say, the build up to the zip line was actually pretty nerve-wracking. 1, it's pretty high up, and 2, we were actually kind of concerned with our 2 kids. My youngest and my mom, you know, didn't join us for this excursion. But you know, my 2 younger boys, which are 9 and 10, did it. So we didn't know how they were gonna orchestrate this. We didn't know if one child was gonna go with me and the other child was gonna go with my wife. On the contrary, they put both kids together, which was kind of nerve-wracking to us as parents. I was the first one to go. Fantastic time, especially the first descent. And the kids were right after us. So the kids were super nervous, and as a father, it was super nerve-wracking to watch them from afar as they were hanging in midair. But you know, it's like anything, you're super nervous at first, and then once you accomplish it, you're just so proud of yourself. They handled it like champs. Now, the way down is not just one zip line. It was about 5 to 6, and they just get easier and easier as you go down. Day 4. Now, day 4 was pretty much a travel day. So the entire trip from La Fortuna to Monte Verde took us about 3 hours by car. We finally arrived to Monte Verde and stayed at Sarita's Casitas. The host was amazing. It's run by a husband and wife. They were super helpful. They actually booked the excursions in Monte Verde for us. So the cost for 2 nights at this location was $411. Again, clean spot, great host. I would definitely recommend it. So once we got to Monte Verde, we settled in, ventured to town a little bit, hit up another, you guessed it, soda for dinner, played at the park with the kids for a little bit, and we pretty much called it a night. So on day 5, we scheduled an early morning hike through the cloud forest to beat the crowds and to also make the most out of our day. Our fantastic host at the Airbnb found us a guide and recommended that the one park we should visit over the other was Curry Concha. Now, the hike again to me was mediocre. I was actually expecting a lot more because of how highly people speak about the cloud forest. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but with the entry fees that we paid and $70 per person for the guide, I was a little disappointed. Now, we didn't get to go as high as we could have in the cloud forest. One of the reasons was because of the kids. It was super early in the morning and we were hiking for 3 hours or so. So they got pretty tired. So we made it as far up as we could, where we started seeing the vegetation change a little bit. Maybe there was more to see on top that might have been a little bit more exciting. But overall, it's a walk through the woods. You see some fruits, some trees, an animal or two that you see through the lens of a binocular. And yeah, so I've done hikes in other parts of the world, Iceland, Vietnam, but the hikes were never the main attraction. It was always the only way to get to a specific destination. So this being the main attraction, just walking through nature. Again, maybe it's us, but it was cool. The honest truth is, I probably wouldn't do it again. So after our hike in Curry Concha, we stopped by a place called the Bat Forest, which is pretty much a bat museum. The entry fee to the Bat Museum is $15 or $30 for a guided tour, which I don't think is super necessary to have a guide. It's a really small place. When we got there, the host was really busy, so just kind of let us in for the discounted rate. I mean, the place was pretty cool, small spot. You get in there, they give you flashlights, it's really dark, and pretty much you look at the bats from the other side of the glass. They do bat feedings and stuff like that, so there's a little bit of interaction with the bats. But we spent about, I would say, 20 minutes and felt like it was time to move on. That evening, we had booked a sunset horseback ride, which was actually pretty cool. The grounds there were absolutely gorgeous. The guides were friendly and awesome. Again, our host at the Airbnb booked this entire excursion for us. They picked us up at the location, drove us out to the grounds where we watched the sunset on horseback, and then at the end of the excursion, they drove us back to the Airbnb. So day 6, we were back on the road towards Manuel Antonio. We actually had another day planned in Monte Verde, but decided to go to Manuel Antonio a day earlier for the simple fact that we didn't feel like there was enough to do in Monte Verde. A lot of people will tell you different. That's just my opinion. The one thing in Monte Verde that we did skip out on that we could have possibly done if we had stayed another day was a zip lining. They say that the zip lining courses in Monte Verde are much better than La Fortuna, but since we had already done it and booked it in La Fortuna, we decided to skip out on it. Nonetheless, we booked this spot in Manuel Antonio kind of last minute, just for one night. The place was called Casa Amigos by the Beach. The one-night stay at Casa Amigos by the Beach cost us $306. Now, the photos and reviews of this place were great, but when we got there, it was pretty run down, a little depressing, I would even say. But it was one night, so we made the best of it. It was really close to the beach in Manuel Antonio, just walking distance. So we spent our evening at the beach and mellowed out. Day 7, we moved from Casa Amigos by the beach to Millennium Hostel. Millennium Hostel was actually a pretty cool place. A 3-night stay, 2 rooms at Millennium Hostel cost us about $985. Cash, I might add. This place didn't take credit cards, and that's something I should probably tell you guys is, they don't take credit cards everywhere, so make sure you do ask ahead. Now, although this place marketed itself as a hostel, I felt like it was more of a hotel than a hostel. It had a bit of a hostel setup, but I don't know that there were actually any shared rooms in there. It looked like a lot of private rooms, and the rooms that we got were private. Some of the other people that we met there had private rooms as well. There were probably a couple of shared rooms in there that you could get for a cheaper rate. But it didn't really have a hostel vibe per se, which probably worked out better for us because we were traveling with the family anyways. It was a typical hostel setting, small, but they made very good use of the space. They had a swimming pool there, an outdoor kitchen, pool tables, so on and so forth. So great spot nonetheless. That night, we had booked a cataraman sunset tour. We had a great time. Took us out to sea. We got to see some whales. Dinner was included, drinks were included. At one point, they stopped the boat and let people jump off into the water. You know, we watched the sunset, which was absolutely gorgeous again, and then made our way back, and that was the end of the day for us. Day 8, we're getting towards the end here. So on this day, we had another horseback ride excursion booked for early in the morning. The horseback ride tour we booked in Manuel Antonio was with Rancho Típico Don Juan. Now, this is pretty much a father and son operation. Fantastic service. They picked us up from our hostel. It's about an hour drive out. Now, the one thing that made this horseback ride from the one we did in Monte Verde was on their grounds. They had a cool little waterfall that they stopped at and let us jump in. It was super hot that day too, so it worked out great for us. Now, the morning at Rancho Típico Don Juan cost us $80 per adult, $70 per child, and $40 for the younger one. And that included transportation, water, fruits, iced tea, and lunch. That evening, we chilled in town, went out to eat at a restaurant, and hung out at the beach for sunset. That takes us to day 9. So day 9 was also a travel day for us. Before we headed back to San Jose, we visited the Manuel Antonio National Park, which is pretty much a protected park. There is an entry fee, which costs us about $30 per person to enter the park. If you enjoy hiking, there's a lot of nature trails there, but also some very beautiful beaches. A lot of wildlife in this place. Iguanas, monkeys, which you should not feed, although we did see a lot of people feeding the monkeys. And this is when we saw our first and last sloth in Costa Rica. There were so many times that we were trying to spot a sloth and we didn't, and you know, it happened on our very last day at Manuel Antonio National Park. So we spent a few hours there, went back to our hostel, packed up, got in our car, and back to San Jose to catch a flight the next day. So yeah, we've been hearing a lot about the driving out here, and surprisingly, I thought it was fine until we got here to San Jose. Now I kind of have a feel for what everybody was talking about. Very aggressive drivers. But I mean, it's not the worst that I've seen. I don't think this is, you know, that bad. It was pretty late night once we got to San Jose. Booked a nice little hotel. The host was actually American. Moved to Costa Rica, married a Costa Rican woman, and has been there ever since. Super nice guy, had great conversations with him. Nice place too, super spacious, and it was actually a pretty affordable place. So we stayed there the night, ordered some food in, and that was pretty much the end of our trip. The next day we woke up, packed our bags, and made our way back to the airport. So in a nutshell, that was our trip to Costa Rica. What's going on, guys? So a little change of scenery here. I am now in my sunroom. My wife and kids came home. It got a little noisy, so new setup here. But anyhow, at the beginning of this video, I promised you guys that I wanted to share my honest opinion on our visit to Costa Rica. Now, overall, as you were able to tell from watching this video, everybody had a good time. The only thing that I can kind of comment on was that our trip to Costa Rica kind of lacked the organic experiences that I am always looking forward to. Now, if any of you follow this channel and have watched my previous videos, you know that I like to get into the middle of it all. I'm always chasing very pure and organic experiences. I love to meet the people, learn the language, the food, the way of life, so on and so forth. With this trip, we didn't experience a lot of that. Now, the main reason for that, in my opinion, was the way that I laid out our itinerary. For example, the places that we visited in Costa Rica, La Fortuna, Manuel Antonio, and Monte Verde are all very popular tourist destinations. Now, what does that mean? That means that a lot of the things there, a lot of the experiences, a lot of the things to do in those regions are going to be catered to the tourists. Most of the locals that we did meet were either working the excursions, you know, restaurant owners, servers, vendors at the beach, so on and so forth. So that was pretty much the one thing that we felt lacked a little bit for us. So with that said, I can see why Costa Rica is as popular as it is as a tourist destination. Obviously, Costa Rica is a place that thrives off its tourism, so I completely understand why these places were structured the way they were. Now, I don't want to discourage anybody from visiting Costa Rica. Overall, we all had a great time. The people that we did meet and interacted with there were all super friendly. You know, I can say that a lot of them kind of went out of their way to make sure you were having a good time, kind of went out of their way to, you know, strike up a conversation or two. I just wish we had a little bit more of that. But again, that's primarily due to our planning and how we laid out our itinerary. So yeah, I mean, we would definitely do it differently. I think if we ever visited again, I would try to stay off of the tourist path a little bit more and venture out and get into more organic experiences. You know, maybe make a couple of friends or two and just see the Costa Rican lifestyle the way that it's meant to be seen versus what they present to you as a tourist. So folks, that's gonna wrap up this video. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you haven't already, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button, like the video. It helps this channel out tremendously and I would highly appreciate it. Till the next one, guys, I'm out.